At this time, we will begin taking questions from the audience. I would like to remind the candidates that they have up to 90 seconds to respond. And please signal me if you would like to add a 60-second follow-up response. We'll begin with Mr. Alexander. The first question is, it is suggested that West Ashley and James Island tax revenue makes its way to the peninsula. What are your plans for a more equal disbursement?
What we've done, and I've heard some comments that West Ashley is not getting its equal share, I would like to point out that in particular, one of the parks, the Northridge Park, which was alluded to earlier, the kayak launching place, for 12 years, the community worked for that project. That's money being allocated to West Ashley to complete the blueways along with the bikeways and the pedways around the city of Charleston. We've also added West Ashley Park on Dees Ferry Road, another allocation of your taxpayer money to West Ashley. The council, as it's set up now, is very cognizant of ensuring that we get a good, fair share of the tax monies that are coming to the city of Charleston. The West Ashley Greenway, another project for West Ashley. We're working diligently for these things. We purchased land out in Pierpont for an additional park. There is allocation of money in West Ashley, and that's because you have a very strong contingent of West Ashley council members right now that are very cognizant of how money is spent in reviewing budgets and looking at projects, looking at the capital plans to ensure that we get the opportunity to share in that money that's coming into the city. Thank you.
Mr. Alvin.
I think the way that we're going to do that, to ensure that there's a fair balance, is to make sure that that money that does come to West Ashley is spent in a proper way that people can see the effects of and affects their daily lives. We all love parks. I love to take our dog to the park, my wife and I, but what we really need are sidewalks, crosswalks, better bus stops, things that people need to get to work and to protect themselves when traveling. More bike lanes. I know we've made some progress on that, but I think that there's much more that needs to be done. We recently had an anesthesiologist who was killed trying to get across the Ashley River on a bike. Things like that need to not happen as much as possible. We need to ensure people are safe, so we need to make sure that we spend that money when it does come here in a proper and efficient way. If we do that, we're going to see more of that money come to West Ashley to be used for projects that are really going to help the people here. We need to evaluate every project, not only that goes to West Ashley and to other areas of the city, but to the peninsula as well, based on how it is going to help the people of the city individually. What is going to have the best impact and help the most people? As a city councilman, that is what I will do when I evaluate every project.
Ms. Beck.
City Council's main role, in a lot of ways, is making sure that the budget is the way that it should be to serve their constituents. And the number one way I would make sure that West Ashley and James Island are getting a fair shake is by being an advocate for my constituents and in the budgeting process. That's when the decisions are made as to how money will be spent and where money will be spent. And without a strong advocate for West Ashley and James Island in District 11, it can be easy for them to be overlooked. Aside from that, I would also say that promises that have been made to West Ashley and James Island that require funding need to be put on the priority list to move forward. And whether that's bike lanes or the Greenway completion or the Ashley crossing or whatever it is, they need to happen. And I would be an advocate for those funded projects and future funded projects that take care of our infrastructure to occur. Thank you.
Mr. Bragg.
Thank you. You know, one of the ways that I think that we could get a fairer share in West Ashley and in James Island is if we have a community-driven, long-term plan. The city of Greenville did this in 2003, and more than 400 people got together and came up with dozens and dozens of recommendations for that city. And what they did is they developed a community-wide vision for the city of Greenville and the county of Greenville on all sorts of areas. And I think that if we bring people together in a collaborative manner and decide what we want Charleston to look like when my kids are in their middle ages and they're middle aged in 2050, we can bring people together and decide on where we want to be so that we can craft policies and spend money in smart ways so that we can achieve our goals. I think that will do a lot to ensure that West Ashley and James Island gets its fair share.
Mr. Moody.
You know, when you start talking about fairness, and I'm not one that's going to pit one against the other. When you look at the budget, I live west of the Ashley. My garbage gets picked up every week. The police are there, the fire there, the general services are there, and that accounts for over 80-something or 85% of our budget. So I'm not sure exactly where we're getting shorted exactly. We've got great bikeways, but we can always work on these things. And so I'm not sure that we want to fight against each other. I think we need to work to be sure that we get what we all want. But I'm not interested in raising taxes. So unless you want your taxes to go up for some of these things, that's what you're stuck with. And so we'll work to balance that. And that's always a difficult thing is balance. But I think that's where my business skills can come into play. I know in this community and in this region for far too long, and I thought we'd kind of gotten away from that our enemy in Charleston is not North Charleston, or it's not Mount Pleasant, or it's not Berkeley County or Charleston County. For so many years, when we got ready to have a firing squad in this community, we'd get in a circle and start shooting. We don't need to do that. We need to come together and work on these problems together. Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien.
District 7 is the Cinderella of Charleston. District 7, the main area, over 50% of it is between Wapo Road, Playground, St. Andrews, and Savannah Highway. Not one city park, not one sidewalk. It has 10 apartment complexes and the rest is older homes. It's an area, if you drive through there and then drive south of Calhoun, it's a tale of two cities. This is an embarrassment to Charleston. It's something that the councilman should have to rectify, and if I'm elected, I will. We have listed in the administration in the budget 120 parks and fields in boasting in Charleston. Our District 7 has one city park. The city lists two other city parks, Mulberry Pond Park and Balsam Park, but if you go there, there are two empty fields facing a drainage ditch. This is not something that we should be proud of. It's something that we should fix, and if I'm your council person, I will fix it.
Mr. Waring.
Our glass isn't half full. Our glass isn't half full. It's not full, but I'm telling you, it's getting close to the top. We have a wonderful community that we live in. The worst thing we can do is begin to be parochial. We'll rise to the top together, not being splintered. The city of Charleston owns CPW. The sewer tunnels West Ashley need to be replaced. The funding is in place to do that to the tune of over $100 million. That's forward thinking. If those sewer tunnels collapse, guess what? All that backs up into our houses, our businesses, our schools. So we're forward thinking and infrastructure. When it comes to sidewalks, we put the pedestrian path on the Ravenel Bridge. We certainly can put sidewalks and pedestrian bike paths in. Our half-cent sales tax dollars, the city of Charleston gets its fair share. A perfect example of that right now is go out on St. Andrews Boulevard, right now, all the way down to 61. Certainly, we're going through the rough patch right now. They're taking off the old, and the new will go on soon. But that's your tax dollars at work. West Ashley. So the system is working. Certainly, we can improve it, and I look forward to carrying your voice to do it.
And we have a follow-up response request from Mr. Brown.
I don't want to suggest to y'all that the city of Charleston isn't working. It's a great place to live in. I mean, we're really fortunate to have the community that we have. What I want to suggest to you is that I have walked and talked to people over the last 3 months throughout West Ashley and James Island, and what I've heard is we like what we got. We like the fact that the trash is picked up and the police show up and the firemen show up, but we think that the city can do a little bit better. And that's all that people seem to want, for the city to try a little harder, to save a little bit more money, to try to use more common sense, as Laura talks about, to try to make sure that we provide better customer service and to make sure that the city government is actually polite to people. So that's what I was trying to suggest earlier.
Thank you.